It can be pretty interesting taking a look at what companies were making long before they had very many eyes on them. Companies like Fromsoft, they may be known today for games like Dark Souls and whatever game after that, but they also have a pretty big library of niche stuff that's also worth a look. One of the most underrated of Fromsoft games is this old PS1 game called Echo Knight, a wonderfully aged adventure game that had you unraveling the mystery of a missing cruise ship. You get to do these little quests for the ghosts of everybody who died in the crash, solving their unfinished business and allowing them to finally pass on peacefully. It was a really solid stab of the horror genre, one that thought of creative new ways to keep the players in the dark and on edge. It's far from the scariest games the genre has to offer, but it did have a handful of good scares, as well as tons of fun puzzles and a gripping narrative more than worthy of the Fromsoft name. Only 2 years later, in 1999, they would release a follow-up, Echo Knight 2, once again exclusive to the PlayStation 1. But for whatever reason, this one never made its way outside of Japan. My guess would be the first game's disappointing sales in North America and Europe. They probably didn't think it was worth spending the money to translate it this time. But hey, that ain't gonna stop old James here. Like, I love the first Echo Knight and I want nothing more than to be able to talk about the sequel too. So, no region lock-in's gonna keep me away from this guy. I've got a Japanese PlayStation just for occasions like this, so let's check this thing out. We open up to a CG intro that sets the scene, showing us a series of different settings and then a blood-red moon. It seems as if the game's scope this time around is going to be a little bit more expansive than it was before. The song from the first game's intro makes a return as well, with a much different mood to it this time. Instead of being played softly on piano, evoking feelings of sadness, this time it has a much more sinister sound to it. I think we can expect a much crueler mystery this time around. Echo Knight, something 2. I wish I knew what that said. Starting a new game... Oh. I probably should have thought of that, huh? Luckily for us, there's a fan translation. Now, normally you'd have to play something like this through an emulator, and I'm not too big on using emulators to review games with. I don't know, sometimes they don't run the game exactly as intended, and otherwise it wouldn't matter, but, you know, if I'm evaluating a product, I'd rather play it on official hardware so I can avoid any inaccuracies. So, after digging around for a little bit, I got it working off of a bootleg disc on my PS2. I don't recommend you do this, though. You can damage your hardware and you can scratch your discs, but for the sake of this video, I do have plenty of extras. Okay, I've got a big dumb setup so I can actually play this thing in English now. A quick shout out to Gemini and Tom for translating the game. You guys have done the work of heroes. And with that said, let's give it a shot. For real this time. Okay, Echo Knight, the Lord of Nightmares. Kind of a cliche title. Also not too sure what happened to the 2 in the title, like where did that go? This game follows a man looking for his missing girlfriend Christina. Our search brings us to the last place she was seen, a university library. Our old buddy from college is able to sneak us in at night so we can take a look around. Wait a minute, our name is Richard Osmond. That's who we were in the first game, except now it's 12 years later and we're still 25 and the evil stone's back, but we destroyed it, didn't we? It seems to me that Echo Knight 2 actually isn't a sequel, but rather a completely new story that doesn't share any continuity with the first game. They just, for some reason, reuse the same character name and reuse the same MacGuffin. I think they just wanted to do the same concept all over again, except with a different story. Anyway, we find out Christina was looking for a book detailing the Clancy family. Upon reading this book, we find a picture of a woman named Jessica who bears a striking resemblance to Christina. Perhaps her mother, a twin sister maybe? We don't know. But we can conclude that she must have been searching for her original family, considering that Christina was an orphan with very little memory of her early life. With this new lead in our pocket, we then drive over to the Clancy residence hoping to find her, but suddenly, we crash. We then see this vision of 2 people talking. A red-haired woman says something about the dude getting what he wants if he can take somebody's life, and that he's gonna have to lose even more too. He declares he does not care before shooting her in the head. We then wake up in this very fancy looking room. This guy named Brian tells us that he pulled us out of a car wreck and helped us into the nearest house. He was lost and apparently brought us to what was seemingly an abandoned mansion. Yeah, bud, because there's tons of those lying around. We soon discover that we've been brought right to the Clancy residence, and it's not long before we stumble upon this creepy chamber, one that holds the comatose body of that woman from the book. Could this be Christina? No, it couldn't be. We'll have to explore the entire mansion if we want to figure out where she is, who this is, and what that man from our vision wants. Definitely a lot of questions in the first couple of minutes, though I do think I like the intro of the first game more. I felt the hook was just a little bit stronger there, like that whole train flashback. Like I really wanted to figure out what was happening there. There was a lot leading up to such a brutal exchange, and they even planted the seeds of what was yet to come by having him give the granddaughter that blue stone. Here you're just kind of looking for your girlfriend, they say some vague stuff, and then he shoots her. I mean, I still really want to unravel what's going on here, but I think the first game did a better job of setting it all up. So we're playing now, and yeah, the game plays identically to the first one. You walk around, explore your environment, and keep an eye open for any items you can use or spirits you can talk to. Doesn't take long before Brian ends up getting super murdered by a vengeful ghost. This mansion is crawling with spirits, some of which would love to kill us. You'll once again find yourself scrambling for those light switches. If the lights are on, the evil spirits won't bother you, but this time around, turning on the lights will also make the NPC spirits appear. See, when you're first exploring around in the dark, perhaps before you've gotten the power back on, you won't be able to see any of those ghosts. They are there, they're just invisible. I noticed a couple of times I wasn't able to walk to certain parts of the room, as if there was like an invisible barrier there or something, but after I finally got the lights on, I realized what was blocking me. So just like before, you'll find yourself doing all sorts of quests for these spirits, easing their troubles and helping them pass on into the afterlife, and collecting their astral piece as a reward. And of course, you'll learn more of the mystery as you do it. The spirits this time seem to be the victims of a mass murder that occurred at this mansion. It's a little less apparent right away just what happened to everybody. In the first game, we're told it was the ship going missing. It could have crashed or something. You know, it's out in the middle of the ocean, something happened to it, and everybody died. That can't happen to a mansion. A mansion can't go missing. A mansion can't crash. So how did these people die? This time we don't know until much later on, which I do think is pretty cool. The puzzles in this game are a lot more, maybe difficult isn't the right word for it. They're a lot more obtuse, requiring more unconventional solutions sometimes. This one at the beginning, for example. There's this bartender, and a long time ago he gave a composition to his girlfriend to play on piano, but a couple of the notes on it are missing, so she can't play it. So you gotta take the composition, you have to read it in your inventory to find out the name of it, you play that song on a jukebox to figure out how it goes, and then you append in the missing notes in the music sheet. And then you give it back, and then she can play the composition for the bartender. They finally do what they wanted to, and they pass on peacefully. It's a really cool puzzle. The steps you take to solve it are pretty brilliantly put together, but as somebody that doesn't know the first thing about sheet music, I found myself editing the notes again and again until it sounded right. For a lot of people, the final step in this puzzle might boil down to trial and error, and that did get pretty annoying. If they just let me hear what each note sounded like when I was scribbling on the sheet, like that would have saved me a lot of time, because you have to give it back to her, you have to let her play it, you gotta hear what you did wrong, go back to the jukebox to hear the song again. You know, it can take a while to do that last step. A lot of quests in this game will also rope together multiple spirits. The characters feel even more interconnected now. You really get to see a lot of relationships between a lot of different people that lived in this mansion, and while I think that does contribute very well to how fleshed out the story gets this time, it also can sometimes feel a bit cheap and lazy. So like in Echo Knight 1, every character had something that was convincingly keeping them from moving on, but here there's sometimes like, I can't move on until that guy moves on, so just finishing that quest is what finishes this quest. I don't know, it feels kind of cheap. A lot of times they do make it work really well though, like when you discover a bunch of women in the dance hall, they're waiting for their husbands to finish playing poker so they can come dance with them. Then you get to find out that one of the players is really stubborn. He will not stop playing until he wins, which never happens, so he's completely holding up the entire group. One cool puzzle later, and you get to watch them all unite and pass on together as they dance the night away. It's really lovely. Though I'm not gonna lie, I got really scared the moment I saw that poker table. Like I was sitting here thinking, oh great, I'm gonna spend another 3 hours gambling again, aren't I? Thankfully, it was just part of a really cool puzzle instead. Way more of the spirits seem to have a more direct connection to the greater story this time, and I don't know, I like that the game focuses on fleshing out the main plot more, but I feel like some of those unrelated mini-stories that really enriched the game's world kinda got lost a little bit in the process. The people aboard the Orpheus in the first game, a lot of them had deep personal ties to the world of the living, ones that only applied to them, and it was really cool seeing all of these self-contained stories. Each ghost felt like it had its own identity, their own place in the world, but here, while they do still have personal qualms, it feels like those qualms sometimes exist just to conveniently link back to the main plot, you know? and I don't really remember the ghosts as well this time because of it. It doesn't happen as often. All I can really think is how the main plot simply bounced off of most of them. I don't think one direction is objectively better than the other. It is an appeal the first game had that was unfortunately sacrificed, but there is an upside to it. It does help make the main plot feel a lot more ambitious, and they flesh it out quite a bit more than they did in the first game. They also made it a lot easier to keep track of all the spirits this time, because now we've got this journal that records them all, even telling you which ones are simply dead and which ones you've actually had pass on. It's also a great way to go over the characters again, so you can remind yourself of various details you need to get the story straight. Kinda reminds me of Luigi's Mansion. That had a similar thing for its cast of ghosts too. Oh no, they both even have a baby ghost. I thought that was morbid in Luigi's Mansion, but this is like way worse. One thing that is incredibly cool though is that you even get to see Brian's ghost, and lo and behold, he's still doing the exact same thing he was trying to do when he got killed. Banging on that door, trying to get out. This game really does need a little bit more keeping track of because the map this time is substantially bigger. We have the entire Clancy property to explore. We start in a huge mansion, but later on we find a dock that can take us to a number of different locations. A chapel, an old ruins, and a tower. The chapel is where you exchange your astral pieces for items, effectively replacing the medium secret room from the first game. Though instead of one astral piece equating to one healing potion each time, now you'll have access to a number of different rewards depending on how many you had at the moment. But if you cash in early, you're not going to be able to afford any of the later rewards. So now it's kind of like a one and done type of situation. The more astral pieces you have in the moment, the better the item you get. The other two locations you'll visit throughout the story. The Ruins is home to a research facility that was being overseen by the Clancy family. Here you'll find the spirits of many archaeologists and researchers that were studying these old ancient ruins and artifacts. There's a degree of dishonesty here that's pretty funny. This guy is grieving that his friend Franco didn't make it out of the cave. Everything collapsed when they were exploring and he got trapped inside, eventually dying. You know how you make this guy pass on? You find Franco's lab coat and you put it on and you go, "Hey, it's me, Franco. I made it." You just lie to the guy. You lie to him to make him pass on, and like, I don't think I like that, honestly, because in the first Echo Night, it felt like I truly did make amends with these people. It felt good to solve their problems and watch them pass on peacefully. But, like, when you just lie to the guy, and, I don't know, I feel like that fuzzy feeling gets trampled on a little bit, you know? In the first game, I actually got that film premiered. I actually found out the doctor really didn't kill that guy. I actually reunited the mother with her son. But here you're, like, lying to a secretary so she can leave work. It is at least a really cool puzzle. You're assuming the roles of different characters using the different lab coats you find to get different reactions. For example, the guy in the projector room. He won't let you take his coat until you find the one from the guy that was supposed to do laundry that day. And in doing the quest this way, you also get to find out how these characters interacted with each other. It's really cool. Just like the first game, you'll often be warped away to a flashback scene at certain points of the game. This could be when finding a certain item or talking to a certain NPC. A lot of these scenes take place in an older version of the mansion, showing what the characters were doing at various points in time. A lot of the game's story is told through these flashbacks. We get to see the mansion's owner, Albert Clancy, doing some shady stuff, as well as the residents all falling victim to murder. And they even do a little bit more at these scenes this time too, playing more with the idea of being back in the past. For example, this one puzzle requires you to fix a violin, which you can do by giving it to a butler back in time. After he tells you he'll fix it, you can then exit the flashback back to present day where you can find it fully repaired. Ooh, dropping those hints. Yeah, we hear the butler talking about seeing somebody who doesn't seem to age. And notice how that line is written in such a way that it does not give us any hints as to who specifically that may be. No mention of age or gender or anything like that. That's one thing they're still very good at here, giving the players all the pieces without putting them together for you. For instance, this flashback when Christina's at the hospital, she explains she doesn't have much memory from her childhood. She remembers another girl the same age as her, but that's it. And that doesn't seem like much, but that is the first clue tying Christina to the Clancy family. The enemy ghosts fit into the plot a lot better this time too. Like, before they were just victims of the Red Stone, but now they have deeper connections to more of the characters. They feel like they have an identifiable role in this mansion's backstory. And I love what they did with the new enemy types too. Like, it feels like they're really picking up from where the first game left off. The first game had them getting harder and harder until the last guy would follow you outside side of the room. Like, this guy would chase you everywhere. But in this game, they all do that from the very beginning. This time they worked their way up to something much cooler. This maid ghost. Oh my god, what a cool enemy she is. Okay, so unlike the other ones, she's flat out invisible most of the time. You can't see her, but you will hear her. You'll hear her bell ringing faster and faster as she gets closer and closer. Yeah, it's kind of like a Silent Hill radio before the Silent Hill radio. It tells you when an enemy is nearby before you get to see them, creating this anticipation. The faster that bell is ringing, the closer you are to getting attacked. And when trying to get away, you will sometimes faintly see her, just barely. Like, god, dude, look how freaking creepy this is. I actually got pretty scared a handful of times by her. And there's also this new mechanic surrounding the power that involves having to take these keys and moving them around to different power panels to turn on that section of the house. The light switches won't work in that area until you've done this. I really wasn't a big fan of this because, firstly, it creates too much uncertainty. Uncertainty can be a very powerful tool when it comes to the horror genre, but unlike the first game, I always know when the switches aren't going to work, and I always know exactly how to make them work. It works this exact same way for every area in this mansion, effectively removing all layers of uncertainty from getting those lights on. Running for a switch, it's not going to be as scary if you already know whether or not it's going to work. Well, at least they do get a little creative outside the mansion. In the research facility, the box is straight up broken. You'll have to find a lantern to light up this area instead, but while I do like this idea, it doesn't last very long at all. You'll be back in the mansion fiddling with power panels again before you know it. My biggest problem with these power panels is how annoying it can be to backtrack everywhere to get these keys all moved around. Sometimes you'll find a new power panel and it's like, oh great, I didn't get the old key, so now I gotta go all the way back and grab that key and bring it all the way back here. The backtracking can get really freaking bad sometimes, like this part in particular. Oh my god, it was driving me up the wall. You gotta go all the way through these caves to get this heartstone, and you gotta bring it back all the way to the boat to go to this tower. You gotta climb all the way to the top of the tower to get a different heartstone, and then go all the way back to the bottom of the tower, back in the boat, back to the cave, replace the heartstone, go in, get the item, back to the boat, back to the tower, all the way back to the top of the tower again, and then you can do it. Like, why do I have to go back and forth between these two areas that are so far away from each other this many times? Don't get me wrong, I really love how they made the world so much bigger this time and created a lot of areas to explore and take in, but when the game makes you go back and forth like this, it can get really annoying. These are some pretty freaking nice looking environments though. Like, there's a lot of impressive details here that you'd rarely see on PS1, like curtains blowing in the window and a windsock actually reacting to the wind. This is a pretty good looking game for its time, and I know some people say graphics don't matter that much, but in a game about exploration, they do. This mansion is incredibly easy to memorize and navigate because of this. Every single room is uniquely decorated with their own furniture models, their own themes, even unique wallpapers. The more work you put into making each room memorable, the easier time I find I usually have remembering where's where and what's what, because, you know, everything stands out so much better. These textures sure pack a punch, dude, like especially in the characters' faces. In most games on PS1, people are usually missing a mouth or eyes or something, but no, here you can easily make out the entire face. It makes those soul-sucking eyes on the enemy ghosts all the more creepy. And when you put them at ease and their face changes to a much more peaceful one, god, like the expressions really come through here. Some of these items, like I swear if it wasn't for the low resolution, I'd probably think they're from a PS2 game. You can tell they put a lot of work into this game. You'll get to stumble through some pretty impressive rooms as angry ghosts chase you around. Ghosts aren't the only chasers in this game though. Sometimes you'll have an alive man try to chase you down instead. They did this one time in the first game, and it was really unexpected and panic-inducing and really thrilling. It was a fantastic sequence that just pulls the rug out from underneath you. They don't do it nearly as well this time. Sometimes this big idiot catches you snooping around the mansion and he'll try to chase you down, but he's so slow and stupid. It's so easy to get away from him, and the puzzles the game has you figuring out as you run away, they're a lot more self-explanatory. Getting away from this dum-dum that walks too slow and getting the garden hose on to put out the lantern flame, it was cool making that connection that he doesn't feel safe without the lantern, and figuring that out was satisfying, but actually getting away from him and doing the puzzle, it's way too easy. There's a pretty cool part where you get stuck in prison. Like, I am always a sucker for games that make you break out of a cell. I love love that stuff. But again, the chase that follows it is so freaking easy, and the goofy music makes it even more laughable. Well, to be fair, the first game also had some pretty goofy music. Yeah, it's not really that good. Thankfully, these games don't really use music that much. Well, back to this idiot. This guy works for Albert Clancy, the owner of the mansion, the one we saw in that vision from earlier. We'll see him dicking around on the property every now and then, clearly behind some sort of elaborate plot, and definitely connected to those murders. The more we learn about Albert, the more interesting the plot gets. And, well, we're kinda getting into spoilers now. Uncovering the mystery is one of the biggest appeals of these games, so as usual, if this looks like something you'd like to try out, I recommend skipping here. Otherwise, let's crack this case wide open, shall we? Okay, so as you make your way through the game, you'll hear more and more about this girl named Jessica. She and Albert were in love, getting married, but a serious illness she's had for a very long time was about to cut their time together short. Albert, he was about to lose everything. But then, he discovered something. In the ruins that he's been overseeing, the research, they uncover the Soul Stone. And according to religious documents, they also uncovered it had the power to grant immortality by sacrificing human lives. Seeing this as his one and only chance to save Jessica, he uses a knife to start killing off members of the mansion staff. However, while the knife clearly reacts to the sacrifices, they don't work. First one, then two, then four. How many will it take? Albert begins to obsessively kill more and more people, even his own sister, his own family. He was willing to throw away everything if it means he could just save Jessica. There's a lot of hints throughout the game that Christina is actually Jessica's twin sister, separated as children, which makes Albert her brother-in-law. It turns out Christina's real name was Rebecca Morgan, back before she was orphaned, and before Jessica Clancy was married, she was, of course, Jessica Morgan. When they were very young, their family went on a big blimp ride, but Jessica had to be left at home as her illness had recently taken form. This blimp was caught in a disaster, and both of her parents were killed on board. God, this blimp sequence is pretty wild for its time. The way the skeletal remains of the blimp plummet to the earth, a hellish red vortex of clouds swirling in the atmosphere above. Wow, what a scene! Unlike her parents, Christina did survive, now orphaned, separated from her sister, and with repressed memories due to the traumatic experience. This is why she had very little memory of her life before being orphaned. After all of his sacrifices were in vain, Albert learns that to successfully achieve immortality, he actually has to sacrifice the soul of a twin. Supposedly, twins are two souls separated at birth, and killing one will allow the souls to reunite, achieving immortality in the surviving twin. One pretty clever thing this game does is the way it sprinkles around these encounters with this mysterious woman here. She seems to know a lot about the stone and the situation, and is seemingly aiding Albert on his quest, though she also makes mention of having a sister. I thought for the longest time that she was gonna end up being Jessica or Christina somehow, but no, it turns out she has nothing to do with either of them. She's just a random person that was made immortal by the stone a long time ago, and being somebody experienced with this ritual, Albert is simply employing her to help him do the same. So you probably see why Albert shot her in the head at the beginning of the game now. He was testing whether or not she was truly immortal before trusting her. So it was her the butler was talking about, not Jessica, not Christina, and that also explains why she comes to mock you for letting ghosts pass on. She doesn't see the value in it, because to her, spirits are simply something you just sacrifice in rituals. The game ends at one of the most iconic locations you can end a horror game at, the Clock Tower. This is where we confront Albert. We race him up to the top of the tower to save Christina, but then Albert comes in and holds us both at gunpoint. Then Jessica comes in behind him and shoots him in the back, tired of all the killing he's done for her sake. We then cut to 3 years later. We and Christina have successfully escaped and even got married. The game then ominously pans to their twin children, as if to imply that someday they too may fall victim to the stone. Now, that's just the standard ending. If you manage to get every spirit to pass on and trade in every astral piece of the chapel, you'll then meet with the medium. Yeah, that mysterious figure from the first game. He says that we are unlike most people he's observed in the past, and we will be given a very important choice soon. Stay true to who we are, and we'll make the right one. This time, it's not Jessica, but that mysterious woman that shoots him in the back. Completely fed up with him and his selfish ways, she has a moment of clarity, a moment of self-reflection, seeing much of her own sister in him. Perhaps it wasn't the woman that sacrificed her sister, but rather the sister that sacrificed herself for her. It seems like she considers this sacrifice more of a selfish act than it was a selfless one. This would explain her distaste for the stone and selfishness in general. It would also explain her more observational attitude when getting involved, simply interested in seeing how the stone would affect others after being cursed with immortality by it for so long. That 20 years remark leads me to believe this woman is very, very old, maybe even being part of the original civilization this stone originated from. Either way, whether I'm right or wrong about this, the more you read in between the lines for this character here, the more interesting she sure as hell becomes. She then offers us the Soul Stone. If we take it, she stabs us and we get a game over, so don't do that. Refusing a knife will have the medium appear. They exchange words that imply a bit of history between the two. Having finally learned her lesson, she becomes mortal once more. 3 years later, Jessica is revealed to have finally overcome her illness, perhaps because of Albert's final wishes, or maybe because the stone has been destroyed. We don't know, but either way, Jessica is safe, Albert's dead, and we can live a happy life with Christina, knowing that the stone is gone forever and cannot cause any more harm. Well, until they bring it back for a third game with another unrelated story. No, it was a really good story, though. I do like that a lot. I like how it's a big old murder mystery this time. It was a lot of fun. And just like the first game, they once again do a really good job of sprinkling those hints throughout it so you can figure things out by yourself. There's also a bad ending that has Albert accidentally shooting Christina. And now that he can no longer complete the ritual and save Jessica, he leaves and ends his own life. However, we can still save Christina. How, you may ask? Well, in the same way Albert wanted to save Jessica. We walk out with that knife and we stab it right into her, sacrificing Jessica to save Christina. I really like this bad ending, like, a lot, because a lot of horror game bad endings are like, screw you, you lose, but no, like, you still win here, but at what cost, you know? Like, you still save Christina, you still do what you came here to do, but in a way that's dirty, in a way that makes you know better than Albert. And of course, that stone being in your possession as the game ends, that's definitely going to cause you problems in the future as well. The way you get this ending is actually pretty funny. You have to get through the entire game without letting a single ghost pass on peacefully. No, yeah, like you can screw up these quests so they don't do that. You can do the puzzle in a way that still advances the plot and lets you get the items so you can move on, but doesn't satisfy the ghost's will, so they just continue standing there for all eternity. No closure, no astral peace. There's a number of quests you can butcher, which will lock you out of the best ending since you can't get all the pieces. For example, the couple with the composition. If you take the composition from her and give it to the bartender, you can get the pepper shaker that way, but if you do this, they never hear the song, and you've locked yourself out of completing their quest. I had to restart the entire game twice because of this. The second time I messed up the secretary puzzle. If you give her this pen instead of doing what you're supposed to, she panics and goes looking for her sister. This makes her move out of the way so you can still get that save key, but now this quest is no longer completable and you can't get those astral pieces anymore. This is something totally new. You couldn't do that in the first game, and it is an interesting idea. I do find it kind of annoying how easily you can lock yourself out of the best ending on a blind playthrough without even knowing you did so either, but I also think that saving the best ending as a reward for carefully solving the quest properly is a good incentive to play it again after getting the standard ending, so I don't mind it too much. Getting all of the ghosts can be a really big pain in the ass though, because there's a couple of optional ones that are really tough to find. Thankfully, you don't have to spend 2 hours in a casino though. No, you're gonna be playing hide and go seek with some ghost kids. These guys can be hidden anywhere in the mansion. This kid here is just under a table in the dining room, but this kid's hiding in a locker. You have to wait until it's late enough for him to fall asleep so he'll stop holding the door shut. It's a pretty cool puzzle. The previous kid will give you a little hint about it. This kid is so easily missable though. At a certain point you lose your lantern, and if you get to that point before you get this kid, you now can't light up this area to make him appear. And also, if you don't have any candles left at this point, you can't make this kid under this desk appear either. If you want to get the best ending, you have to make sure you know where to get these 4 kids. And I guess that just about covers it. Yeah, Heck Knight 2. pretty decent sequel. It's more or less just the same thing again, except, you know, bigger and better, as they say. The maps are bigger, there's more content, the game's quite a bit longer, and the story's a little bit more complex. There's a lot I really liked about it. There's some changes they made that I think was really cool. They explore some territory I really like seeing. I really like what they did with the ghosts and the chasers and all that, but, you know, there's some stuff I wasn't huge on too. Yet again, Fromsoft does a fantastic job of slowly unraveling the plot. Most details aren't outright told to you, but are instead implied vaguely, letting a player figure things out all on their own. And that mindset also carries on to the puzzles too. This is a game that will not hold your hand at all, so if you like the first Echo Knight for that, you'll absolutely love what this game has to offer. The overall story of the game, well, I found the plot more interesting than the first time, but I think the first game had better individual moments, and I like that. It's cool to see that both stories have strengths that the other one doesn't. Though I do admit the game does have some pacing issues. The backtracking can be so long and daunting, and fiddling with those power boxes can also be really annoying, and getting the best ending, well, while I do like how you can butcher the main quest, changing which ending you get, I think some of the optional ghosts being so obscure is downright obnoxious. Overall, I think I like the first game a lot more, honestly. I like the setting a lot more, and I like the more somber mood that the narrative carried. The ghosts and plot in this one are all still great and all, but I prefer the pacing and the moment-to-moment interactions of the first game, but I still think it's pretty good. If you'd like to play it, well, right now there's no official translation, so you'll have to run the fan translation off of like an emulator or something. If you played Echo Knight 1 and you wanted more, I would absolutely recommend Echo Knight 2, because, well, it sure is Echo Knight, just a lot more. Much more content this time. The game's a lot longer than the first one. It took me frickin' forever to get all those endings. Another solid entry in the Echo Knight series, but now we only have one left in the trilogy to cover. While Echo Knight 1 and 2 had us unraveling a mystery far back in the past, Echo Knight Beyond takes us far into the future instead. I don't really know a whole lot about this one yet, but just reading the back, it sounds like it's going to be the same thing again, except in a haunted moon colony. Need I say more? That sounds sick. Hey, just letting you guys know that I have Halloween shirts currently available for pre-order on theyeti.com. If you like one of these bad boys, you gotta get your order in before Halloween 2020, because then they're gonna be gone. The artwork, man, like Kevin did an incredible job on it. Just scroll on down to the description or the pinned comment for a link to where you can get one. It really does help support the channel a lot, so I hope you guys like them.